So I was around 14 or 15 at the time and lived in a small village. My boyfriend and I were heading outside to bring me back home, and it was pretty dark at the time. My BF lived in a rundown area with just a small kiosk and a supermarket further down the street. And from the exact kiosk, we heard a woman shouting, "Get the fuck out of here." A few seconds later, a dark figure was approaching us, with me walking at the side of the sidewalk, facing the approaching guy. He didn't run, but he was walking pretty fast, almost brushing my arm while passing by. We didn't think much of it until we heard the news the next day. That guy attempted to rob the small kiosk with a kitchen knife. And that old kiosk lady told him to fuck off, and he just did. I remember he had something in his hand as he passed by. Probably the knife. After all these years, just the thought of it makes me feel uncomfortable. He could have just stabbed me. First of all, I'm a 21-year-old guy. I didn't think I would ever be targeted in such a way, but I guess you'd be surprised. Anyways, I had just flown back into my hometown from vacation. Neither my buddies or my roommate were able to pick me up from the airport. I tried to call an Uber Lyft, but in my small town, there happened to be none available. I decided I could walk home in less than an hour. I only had my backpack and a suitcase. Now I know that this would make me susceptible to random people offering me a ride, but I wasn't going to accept any rides regardless. What do you know? Not even 10 minutes into my walk, I pass a few gravel parking lots with all broke down abandoned cars. As I walk by, a small sedan pulls out of the back of the parking lot and stops beside me. A 40 to 50-year-old man, bald, mustache, and all. It's this next part that really turned the situation creepy. This 40 to 50-year-old man uses the highest pitch baby voice he could possibly use. "Where are you going? I can take you." At this point, I was already in a bad mood, so I quickly got angry and told him home is right around the corner. I think he realized I was older than he thought, and that's why he took off. Not the creepiest of encounters, but it sure is creepy enough and really shows you it might only take one walk home alone to attract these creepy ass people nowadays. So I want to share this creepy encounter with you guys. About 4 years ago, my wife and I planned an evening out for her birthday. My parents babysat, and we went out to a restaurant. Because I drove, I didn't drink, so we didn't bother to go anywhere else after we were done in the restaurant. But because the night was still young, we decided to go on a long drive. A location which is relatively nearby is a large national park. We decided to take a drive up there and just sit and chat under the stars. When we arrived up there, the country roads were dead. I found a nice open parking area to pull the car up in. We sat inside the car talking. We started making up, and things carried on until we began having sex. At no point did either of us leave the car. As we were doing the deed, headlights lit up on our vehicle. Instantly, we were like, "Oh my God, there's someone driving by. I hope they don't see what we're doing." For me, it was an instant turnoff, so I quickly pulled up my trousers and ceased. I thought the car was just a fellow traveler passing by. But to our surprise, the car pulled into our area and began to circle us. I put the keys in the ignition and said, "Let's go." I drove out of the parking area onto the road and back to the main connecting road. The car followed. Once on the main connecting road, we could see the make, model, and color of the car that was following us. It was a dark red Ford. I drove quickly, but not recklessly. The car matched my speed and was right up my ass. At this point, neither of us were 100% sure if we were being paranoid or if this car was really meaning to follow us. So I said, "I know what I'll do. I'll pull off at a random turning and see what they do." So I put my foot down, and after a few hundred yards down the main road, I made a late left turn down a really narrow side road. I pulled up after a while on the side road, stopped and turned my lights off, and I watched in my rearview mirror to see if the red Ford carried straight on the main road or if he turned off. A few seconds later, there he was. He had turned off, and he was now coming down this narrow lane towards us again. At first, we were blinded by his headlights, but I was sure it was him. My wife said, "I don't think it's the same car, you know." I said, it is, look." As he got closer, it became apparent it was the same car. So I drove down the road further, and luckily I found a space big enough to turn my car around. I spun around and back to the main road again. He followed. Now back on the main road for a second time, I did now decide to speed. As I was heading towards the built-up city center, he kept behind me the whole way. Eventually we stopped at a red light, and he was right behind. I looked in my rearview mirror and saw his face. To this day, I can still see his face. A middle-aged, slightly tubby man with glasses and thin gray hair. At this point, I was freaked out. We both were. I said to my wife, "I'm going to keep driving and try to lose him, but I'm not driving home so he doesn't know where we live." She agreed. We drove around for maybe 10 minutes. He was still following. At this time, I was beginning to consider possibly calling the cops, but thought I would give it a few more minutes of trying to lose him. Thankfully, a few streets later, he turned off and was never seen again. I know it's a real possibility that he may have been a dogger. Not sure if this is a thing in America, but it's basically where strangers meet other strangers in the wilderness to have sex. But if he was a dogger, or if he thought we were doggers, we're not, then surely he would have understood. We weren't interested when we actively drove away. The fact he followed us into the built-up city for 25 minutes or more makes me think he had more sinister intentions. What do you think? To this day, it's still the most weirdest moment of my life. I, 17 female, live in a very uneventful town. The hangout spot for most kids is either the small shopping center or the football field. So my friends and I like to frequent the downtown area 2 towns over. It is worlds bigger and has so many more things to do. If not actually going into stores, just walking down the streets looking at the pretty string lights is eventful enough for me. The main area of the attraction of this downtown, though, is the park. It's pretty much just an average old park, but it's very spacious and has a lot of benches for people to sit and stargaze. At night, the park is dark. I mean, really dark. There's probably about 3 lamp posts throughout the whole area. Especially on the weekends, there are a lot of people roaming the streets, primarily teenagers. So, there are always police cars and officers in basically every direction you look. I guess for safety reasons. Or maybe the cops are just always assuming we're up to no good. They wouldn't be necessarily wrong, though, because a park always smells loud as fuck. Weed, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Since you can barely see your hand in front of your face at night, it's hard to get caught smoking by the cops. Maybe that's why so many people go there. I don't know. Anyway, on this particular night, I was with 2 friends, A, 17 female, and C, 17 male. I had wanted to go take some pictures of us 3 in the park to hang on her photo wall. There was a pretty substantial amount of people there, even though it was starting to get pretty late. We sat at a park bench towards the back of the park near one of the lamp posts. There were 2 benches near each other, with the lamp post in the middle separating them. We spent about 20 minutes or so taking pictures, just random poses and candids. Around this time, a man around 30 to 40 sat down at the bench adjacent to us. Now this is me retroactively placing him there based on what A had told me later, because I honestly did not notice him sit down at this time. He had dark tan skin was wearing a dark-colored plain baseball cap that covered his face, jeans, and just a plain lighter-colored t-shirt, maybe red. He also had wired earbuds in connected to his phone that he was holding. A couple minutes later, 2 girls around our age walked past us and then sat down next to the man. This is the point of which I noticed him out of the corner of my eye, but paid no attention to him. I was still in the middle of taking pictures of A and C kissing. They are a couple as well as my friends, so I was somewhat distracted. But I took particular notice of the 2 girls sitting at the bench because they looked very uncomfortable and unnatural there. While the 3 of us were looking at the photos we just took, the 2 girls quickly walked up to us. I thought they were about to ask if we wanted them to take a picture of all of us together. But what they actually said, my stomach dropped. That man was taking a video of you. Immediately, A and C grabbed our stuff and booked it out of there, pretty much dragging me along because I was still trying to react to what the girls had said. I applaud them for their fight or flight instincts. The 2 girls hastily rushed in our opposite direction as soon as they told us, rightfully also being creeped out. We sat at the table a few streets away from the park, finally able to react to what just happened. I just sat there, barely saying anything while A and C were trying to recall what the man looked like so we could go up to one of the police officers on the street and report him. But of course, as we looked for one, there was not one to be found for blocks. C went back in the park to see if the guy was still there, but the second we left, he did too. We also checked the camera to see if we have gotten a picture with him in the background, but to no look. I was wearing jeans, arguably tight, and showed off my body, and a t-shirt. A was wearing a short flowy dress. Not that what we were wearing would just have justified any of what this guy did, but I say this to make a point that there are definitely some violating shots of us on that guy's phone. We tried to walk around a little bit to shake it off, but at that point the whole night had been ruined, and we all just wanted to go home. C just kept non-stop apologizing to us, saying he was sorry this happened and he wished he could fix it. He's one of the good ones. I was definitely still in no state to drive, which I quickly learned as I nearly got hit by a car flying through the stoplight as we were leaving. After that, I sat in the middle of the road clutching my steering wheel as we all tried to process us almost being quite literally killed. I didn't say a word the entire ride home. I just turned up my music as loud as I could and silently cried. Once I dropped A and C off and it was just myself, I screamed the whole way home. A horrible, shrieking, violent sobbing. I've been harassed before. It's just a perk of being a girl, I guess. But something about that made me feel so violated. I think it's the fact that I know there's a video of me, of my body, as well as my friend, on this creep's phone forever. I don't want to think of what he'll do with it, or else I will lose my damn mind. I'm just forever grateful for those 2 girls who were brave enough to actually sit next to this guy in order to help us. We tried to find them afterwards, but they left very quickly. I don't blame them. I guess my message to you guys is to be aware of your surroundings. You never know what kind of person could be sitting right next to you.